Thank you, Adam, and welcome again, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us for a presentation on New York State's paid family leave with a specific focus on bonding with a newly born, adopted, or fostered child. Paid family leave is now fully phased in with benefits at maximum levels for this year and beyond. Paid family leave benefits have been significantly enhanced to further improve the lives of working New Yorkers and their families, including providing more time off, more uses for paid family leave, and more financial security. In today's presentation, we will start by discussing why we need paid family leave, and then cover some basics you need to know, including the 3 original uses of paid family leave, an overview of the benefits, how much it costs, who is eligible, and the steps that you need to take to request paid family leave for bonding with a newly born, adopted, or foster child. We will review some frequently asked questions about this type of leave, discuss information regarding paid family leave in COVID-19, and then point you to some helpful resources. Like Adam said, we will leave plenty of time at the end for all of your questions. So let's get started. Why do we need paid family leave? For too long, employees have struggled to maintain their jobs when they need to care for a loved one during a specific time of need, whether that's welcoming a new baby, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, or dealing with family pressures when a loved one is deployed abroad on active military service. And more recently, many employees have been challenged by having to quarantine due to COVID-19 or care for a minor dependent child who is subject to a mandatory quarantine or order of isolation. Employees in these situations face the stress of losing income when they need to take time off to help their family, and also fear their job may be gone when the family situation is over. So in response to this need, New York took action, and in April of 2016, New York paid family leave was signed into law. Paid family leave is employee-funded insurance that helps employees be there for their family when they're most needed. Because of paid family leave, workers across New York no longer have to choose between caring for their loved ones and their jobs, as we now have this employee-paid insurance to help in these critical times. Paid family leave provides job-protected, paid time off so that you can bond with a newly born, adopted, or fostered child, care for a family member with a serious health condition, or assist loved ones when a spouse, domestic partner, child, or parent is called to active military service abroad. Paid family leave also provides time off and job protection so you can care for yourself or your minor dependent child when under a mandatory order of quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. The order must be issued by the State of New York, the Department of Health, local Board of Health, or any government entity duly authorized to issue such order due to COVID-19. And we will go into more detail on these uses later on in the presentation, as they are a bit different from the others. In addition to paid time off, New York's paid family leave also has very strong employee protections. You are guaranteed to return to the same or a comparable job after taking paid family leave. A comparable job is defined as a position with comparable employment benefits, pay, and other terms and conditions of employment. You are guaranteed continuation of health insurance while out on paid family leave on the same terms as if you had continued to work. If you do contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue paying your portion of the premium while on leave. And you are also guaranteed protection from discrimination and retaliation. So requesting or taking paid family leave cannot be held against you. Today, we will focus on using paid family leave to bond with a newly born, adopted, or fostered child. Paid family leave has been shown to have a number of health benefits for parents and children. New mothers who take paid leave have fewer postpartum depression symptoms, higher breastfeeding rates, and breastfeed longer. Parents are less stressed and have stronger parent-child bonding. Infants have fewer infections and are generally healthier. Paid family leave provides both parents time to bond with a new child within the first 12 months of the child's birth, adoption, or foster care placement. This includes children born, adopted, or placed in foster care in 2021, as long as the leave is taken and completed within the first 12 months of the foster care placement. Mothers and fathers, including same-sex parents, are all provided the same opportunity to bond with their child. Parents who work for different employers can take paid family leave at the same time to bond with the same child. Parents who work for the same employer can take it at the same time unless their employer prohibits it, and in that case, they can take leave separately over the first 12 months following the child's birth, adoption, or foster care placement. It is important to note that expectant mothers cannot take paid family leave for their own pregnancy. They can take it after the baby is born because paid family leave is used to bond with that baby. Now let's take a look at the specific benefits available to you under paid family leave. As mentioned earlier, paid family leave is now fully phased in, with benefits providing the maximum time off and financial security. Paid family leave provides time off and wage benefits, which were gradually phased in over a 4-year period that started in 2018. At that time, paid family leave provided 8 weeks off at 50% pay up to a cap. Now that paid family leave is fully phased in, eligible employees are able to take up to 12 weeks of paid family leave at 67% of their average weekly wage, capped at 67% of the New York State average weekly wage. An employee's average weekly wage is based on their last 8 weeks of pay prior to taking paid family leave. For 2022, the New York State average weekly wage is $1,594.97. And it's important to note that employees can take this paid time off all at once or intermittently, but it must always be taken in full day increments. To estimate your wage benefit, you can use the 2022 calculator that's available on the Paid Family Leave website. Paid family leave is fully funded through employee contributions. Each year, the Department of Financial Services sets the employee contribution rate to match the cost of coverage. In 2022, the payroll contribution is 0.511% of your gross wages each pay period. The maximum annual contribution is $423.71. If you do earn less than the statewide average weekly wage, you will contribute less than the annual cap consistent with your actual wages. To estimate your deduction, you can use the payroll deduction calculator available on the Paid Family Leave website. So just going over updates for 2022, the maximum weekly benefit increased from $971.61 a week in 2021 to $1,068.38 in 2022. And as of January 1st, 2022, employers may continue deducting at the rate of 0.511% of an employee's gross wages each pay period, but note that the annual maximum cap is now $423.71. In 2021, it was around $385. Now that we have covered the types of leave, the benefits, and the costs, let's discuss who is covered and eligible for paid family leave. Most employees who work for private employers in New York State are covered under paid family leave. If you work for a public employer, your employer may opt into the program. If you are a public employee represented by a union, you may be covered if paid family leave is collectively bargained. For covered employees, your eligibility for taking paid family leave depends on meeting specific requirements for the amount of time you have worked for your employer. Full-time employees who regularly work 20 or more hours per week are eligible for paid family leave after 26 consecutive weeks of employment with the same employer. Part-time employees who work a regular schedule of fewer than 20 hours per week are eligible after working 175 days, which do not need to be consecutive. Citizenship and/or immigration status is not ever a factor in employee eligibility. Paid family leave coverage is not optional for eligible employees. You can waive coverage if you regularly work 20 or more hours per week, but you will not be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks. So a good example of that is a seasonal worker who gets hired for the summer months, full-time working 40 hours per week, but they won't be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks or 6 months, so they would be eligible to complete a waiver form. You also would be able to waive coverage if you regularly work fewer than 20 hours per week, but will not work 175 days in a 52-week period. If you do meet the criteria for waiving coverage, your employer must provide you with a waiver form, which is available on the Paid Family Leave website. And if you do decide to waive coverage, you will not make contributions and you will not be eligible for paid family leave benefits. Employers should keep a copy of your completed waiver on file. If your schedule changes such that you no longer qualify for a waiver, so maybe, for example, you were a seasonal worker, but then the employer just decided to keep you on as a permanent employee, you would no longer qualify for the waiver because now you'll be in employment for more than 26 consecutive weeks. So your waiver will be automatically revoked within 8 weeks of that schedule change. And then keep in mind that you can also voluntarily revoke a waiver at any time. If your waiver is revoked, your employer will begin taking paid family leave contributions, and they can also collect any retroactive amounts due for the time that the waiver was in place. Now we'll cover how to request paid family leave for bonding with your newly born, adopted, or foster child, as well as how disputes and discrimination issues will be handled. As mentioned before, paid family leave is now fully phased in. Keep in mind that if you are an eligible employee, the maximum benefit is available to you once every 52 weeks. When you're ready to request leave to care for bonding with your newly born, adopted, or foster child, there are 3 basic steps. Step 1 is to notify your employer at least 30 days before the start of your leave if it's foreseeable, or as soon as possible if it's not foreseeable. Step 2 is to complete the request forms. Step 3 is to send all the required forms to the insurance carrier. The insurance carrier must then pay or deny your request within 18 calendar days of receiving the completed request or the first day of leave, whichever is later. You must submit your completed request package to your employer's insurance carrier within 30 days after the start of your leave to avoid losing benefits. So just taking a look at each of these steps a little bit more in depth, step 1, again, is to inform your employer. So let your employer know at least 30 days before your leave will start if it's a foreseeable leave. So for example, you may be planning to take paid family leave after your newborn's due date, or in the case of adoption or fostering, after your placement date, or maybe you will choose to take it at a later date, just as long as it's any time within the first 12 months of the child's birth or placement. Notify your employer as soon as you know the dates that you want to take leave if it's not foreseeable. So for example, if you need to take bonding leave unexpectedly and 30 days notice isn't possible, maybe in the case of an early birth or a last-minute foster placement, just make sure you are notifying your employer as soon as you possibly can. Step 2 is to complete the required paid family leave request forms. For bonding leave, your request will contain 2 forms. The first one, Request for Paid Family Leave Form PSL-1, gives your insurance company information about you. The second form, Bonding Certification Form PSL-2, requires information to confirm that the birth, adoption, or foster placement has occurred or will occur. You can get these paid family leave request forms from your employer, your employer's paid family leave insurance carrier, or directly from paidfamilyleave.ny.gov/forms. So looking at the forms a little bit more in depth, we are going to start with the request for paid family leave, or Form PFL-1. Every employee who is requesting paid family leave will start with this form. It asks you for basic information about you and the leave that you want to take, and it has a section for your employer to complete as well. You will submit this form to your employer's insurance carrier along with the other completed forms for the type of leave that you're taking. So Form PFL-1 does have two parts. You as the employee are responsible for filling out Part A, and then your employer is responsible for filling out Part B. The first section of Part A covers your personal information, including your address, your social security number or tax identification number, and your date of birth. You must also state why you are requesting the leave and how it pertains to you. Next, you will indicate if you expect your leave to be a continuous period or intermittent. You might not know all of the dates for certain, and that's okay, so you can just indicate that they are estimated by checking that box that says dates are estimated, and then make sure that you update both your insurance carrier and your employer if a change is needed. Finally, you will provide information about your employment, including your employer's location and phone number, your date of hire, your average gross weekly wage, whether or not you have more than one employer, if you are taking paid family leave from that other employer, and then if you are currently receiving workers' compensation lost wage benefits. Once you complete all of that information, you will then need to sign and date Part A of the form, and then give it to your employer, who will then complete Part B of the form. Before you do give it over to your employer, just make sure that you make a copy of your completed Part A of Form PFL-1. Your employer then has 3 business days to fill out Part B of Form PFL-1 and return it back to you. If your employer does not return the form within those 3 business days, you can still proceed with your paid family leave request. Next, you must complete the bonding certification, which is Form PFL-2. On this form, you will need to provide information about the child, including their date of birth, whether the child lives with you, and evidence of your relationship to the child. Along with the bonding certification form, you must provide proof of your relationship to the child with a supporting document. The type of supporting documentation that you'll provide along with Form PFL-1 and Form PFL-2 will differ based on the kind of bonding leave that you are requesting. So just looking at the supporting documentation a little bit closer, you can see on this chart the supporting documents that are needed. They are listed in order of preference for each situation. You should submit the preferred document to the insurance carrier if it is available. So if you are the birth parent, you can submit the original copy of a healthcare provider certification of pregnancy, or you can submit a child's birth certificate if it's available. If you are not the birth parent, then you would submit a copy of the child's birth certificate naming you as the second parent. If that's not available yet, then you could provide a court order affiliation from family court or a voluntary acknowledgement of paternity, which would establish your relationship. These documents can be used even when parents are not married. Alternatively, the other birth parent could also provide the same documents as the birth parent plus a second document verifying the relationship to the birth parent. So, for example, a marriage certificate, civil union documents, or evidence of domestic partnership. If you are a foster parent, then you would provide a letter of foster care placement issued by a county or city Department of Social Services or a local voluntary agency. If you aren't named on that placement document, then you would provide a copy of the placement document and then another document proving your relationship to the parent who is named. So, for example, a marriage certificate. If you are an adoptive parent, then you would provide a court document finalizing the adoption or documentation proving that the adoption is moving forward, such as a signed statement from an adoption agency that showing that you are in the process of adopting a child. And then if for some reason you aren't named on the adoption document, in addition to providing that placement document, you would also need to provide a document proving your relationship to the parent who is named. Again, an example would be a marriage certificate. And then you are also asked to state the date of foster care or adoption placement, if applicable, on the PSL form. And once you have the appropriate documents, you will just sign and date Form PSL2. And I know this was a lot of information on the slide. A listing of all of these documentation options and their descriptions is on Form PSL2 for you. Step 3 is to send all of the forms to your employer's insurance carrier. Before submitting your forms, just make sure that you not only have a copy of Form PSL1, but you also have a copy of Form PSL2. So you will submit both Form PSL1 and Form PSL2 to your employer's paid family leave insurance carrier or directly to your employer if they are an approved self-insured employer. If you're not sure where exactly to send your form, you can look at Part B, Question 13 of Form PSL1. This is a section that your employer completed, and they did need to fill out the contact information for your insurance carrier. If for some reason they didn't fill out that section of the form, you can ask your employer, or you can always contact the Paid Family Leave Helpline at 844-337-6303 for assistance. And then once you submit all of these forms to the carrier, they must pay or deny within 18 calendar days of receiving your completed request, or within 18 days of your first day of leave, whichever is later. If for some reason your paid family leave request is denied, or you have another claim-related dispute, such as the amount of benefits or the timeliness of a carrier's decision, then you may request to have the denial reviewed by a neutral arbitrator. Your insurance carrier or employer, if they are an approved self-insured employer, will notify you of the reason for denial and provide you with information about requesting arbitration. Arbitration for paid family leave is handled by NAM, National Arbitration and Mediation, and more information on arbitration is available at NAM's website. As mentioned earlier, your employer may not discriminate against you for requesting or taking paid family leave, and you are guaranteed job protection with the same or a comparable job upon return from paid family leave. If your employer does not return you to your same or a comparable job, terminates you, reduces your pay and or benefits, or disciplines you in any way as a result of you requesting or taking paid family leave, you can file a discrimination claim with the Workers' Compensation Board. An administrative law judge may order an employer to reinstate an employee, pay any lost wages, pay attorney's fees, and pay up to $500 in penalties. The full process and all of the forms are available at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, or again, you can always call the Paid Family Leave Helpline for assistance. That number is 844-337-6303. There are a few frequently asked questions about paid family leave and other leave policies that might be helpful for you to know. So one of the biggest ones is, how are paid family leave and the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act similar? There are several similarities between the two benefits. They both provide leave for bonding with a child, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, and assisting when a family member is deployed on active military service abroad. And you're also guaranteed that you'll return to the same or a comparable position, and that your health insurance will continue on the same terms as if you had continued to work. Just a reminder that if you do contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue to pay your portion of the premium cost while on leave. But there are a number of key differences between the New York Paid Family Leave Benefit and the Federal Family Medical Leave Benefit. So a big one is being that New York is paid and FMLA is not paid. Almost all private employers will carry New York Paid Family Leave insurance. FMLA is not an insurance product, and it does have a 50 employee threshold for eligibility. The length of time you must work is a little bit different. So just as a review for New York's paid family leave, if you work 20 or more hours per week, you must be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks. And if you work fewer than 20 hours per week, you must work 175 days, which do not need to be consecutive. For FMLA, you must have worked for a full year and 1,250 hours in the last 52 weeks to qualify. Another really big distinction is that under New York's paid family leave, you can't take leave to care for your own serious health condition. You are taking leave to care for someone else or bond with someone else. FMLA does allow you to take leave for your own serious health condition. Paid family leave can only be taken in full day increments. FMLA you can take hourly. And then another big distinction is that under paid family leave, you do not need to use your other paid time off first. So can you take both paid family leave and short-term disability at the same time? So you cannot collect short-term disability and paid family leave benefits at the same time. However, you could take them one after the other if you're eligible for both. So a birth mother, for example, could take short-term disability first and then afterwards take paid family leave. Just keep in mind that the total amount of time taken for short-term disability and paid family leave cannot exceed 26 weeks in any 52-week period. So how does paid family leave work with other maternity, paternity leave policies that an employer might have? To be compliant with the paid family leave law, covered employers must have coverage for at least 12 weeks of paid family leave at 67% of an employee's pay up to the statewide cap for 2022. Employers are free to supplement paid family leave with additional benefits if they would like to. Employers can add to those benefits up to a maximum of an employee's full wages. So just keep in mind that the combined benefit from the employer and paid family leave cannot exceed an employee's full wages. Employers can require paid family leave to run concurrently with their own maternity and paternity leave policies. And you should just make sure to check with your employer about how the benefits will interact. What if the child being fostered or adopted is not an infant? So there is no age limit on taking paid family leave to bond with a child. Just keep in mind that the bonding leave does have to be completed within the first year of the child's birth, adoption, or foster care placement. As I touched on briefly earlier, there are 2 additional uses of paid family leave that took effect under emergency legislation that was signed in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The legislation allows for a combination of New York paid family leave and disability benefits if you are under an order of mandatory or precautionary quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. I know I just went over a frequently asked question about not using disability and paid family leave at the same time. So this situation is the only time that you may receive paid family leave and disability benefits at the same time. The legislation also gives you access to paid family leave if your minor dependent child is under an order of mandatory or precautionary quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. So the next couple slides are going to walk through how the benefits for your own order of quarantine or isolation vary depending on the size of your employer. So most employees who work for an employer with 10 or fewer employees and a business net annual income of less than $1 million can use a combination of paid family leave and disability benefits. So first you would receive your paid family leave benefit. You'll note that the maximum weekly benefit for the COVID leave is $840.70 a week. It is a little bit different than the other 3 uses. So once you get your paid family leave benefit, you would then get disability benefits with a maximum of $2,043.92 on those benefits up to your full wages, capped at that $2,000 amount, and then that gives you a grand total maximum of $2,884.62 per week. There's no waiting period for either benefit, and you will have job protection for the duration of the quarantine. For most employees who work for an employer with 11 to 99 employees, and then smaller employers with a business net annual income greater than $1 million, your employer is required to provide at least 5 days of COVID-19 paid sick leave. Then, if you're still under an order of quarantine or isolation after those 5 days of paid sick leave, eligible employees would have the paid family leave and disability benefits available to them. Again, that would be a maximum of $840.70 for the paid family leave benefit and a maximum of $2,043.92 for the disability benefit, with a combined total maximum of $2,884.62 per week. There's no waiting period, and you do have job protection for the duration. For most employees who work for an employer with 100 or more employees, as well as all public employees, your employer is required to provide at least 14 days of COVID-19 paid sick leave for your own order of quarantine or isolation, and this should cover the full period of the order of quarantine or isolation. And you also will have job protection for the duration of the quarantine. If you request leave for your minor dependent child's quarantine or isolation, you may be eligible to receive paid family leave benefits. Again, you'll just note that the maximum weekly benefit is going to be $840.70, so it is a little bit different than the other three uses. More detailed information about taking paid family leave for your quarantine or your child can be found at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov/COVID-19. There we also have information about the COVID-19 paid sick leave requirements. We have a lot of frequently asked questions. We have all of the application forms and more resources for you. As you think about how paid family leave may be able to help you and your family, there are many resources to assist you. Complete details on paid family leave are available on the website, which again is paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, along with other resources including paid family leave request forms and fact sheets, weekly deduction and benefit calculators, and information about the COVID-19 quarantine leave benefits. You can also contact the Paid Family Leave Helpline at 844-337-6303 for assistance. That helpline is open Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And if you're not already subscribed for email updates on paid family leave, including information on upcoming webinars, you can subscribe by clicking Get Updates on the bottom of the paidfamilyleave.ny.gov homepage. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to discuss New York's landmark paid family leave with you. We will take questions in just a moment. I do just want to remind everyone that the Workers' Compensation Board cannot provide legal advice. So what that means is if you have a question about your specific situation or a specific set of facts, we will not be able to tell you whether or not you're eligible or comment on those specific facts, but we can provide you with general information about paid family leave. Before we start taking your questions, I'm just going to turn it back over to Adam.
Yes, thank you, Quinn. Again, enter your questions in the chat box. I do want to reiterate, we will be providing you with a copy of this slide deck as well as a recording on our Paid Family Leave website as well as our YouTube page. If you go on our YouTube page now, you will see some previously recorded webinars on PFL. I believe there's a bonding one from last year, so it's a bit outdated, but most of the information is generally the same. We will be updating that, obviously, with this presentation. So again, as Quinn mentioned, just make sure you're signed up for email updates so you know when those are available. We're going to take a brief period of silence now to review the questions that are coming in, and we will be back with you shortly. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to jump right into questions. So the first question is, if the employee gets 6 weeks of short-term disability leave, do they also get 12 full weeks of paid family leave, or does the paid family leave decrease by the 6 weeks of disability leave? So the 6 weeks of disability leave is not going to decrease the amount of paid family leave available as long as the employee isn't exceeding that combined 26 weeks in a 52-week period. So Just like if you haven't taken any disability or any paid family leave and you're taking 6 weeks of short-term disability, you would have the full 12 weeks of paid family leave available to you. The next question is about COVID-19 leave. So is the 5 days of COVID-19 paid sick leave after the 3 occasions of New York State COVID-19 emergency paid leave is exhausted? So I am not completely familiar with what the COVID-19 emergency paid leave is. The 5 days of COVID-19 paid sick leave, those are required to be provided in addition to any other paid sick leave days or accruals or any other paid time off that the employee might have available. So remember that when we're talking about COVID-19 quarantine leave, we're being specific to when an employee is themselves under an order of quarantine or isolation. Depending on the size of the employer, they might have the 5 days of COVID-19 paid sick leave available. That would be provided, without using any accruals, any other sick leave, any other paid time off. And then after that, those 5 days, they might have paid family leave and disability available. The next question is how many times can an employee use the COVID-19 quarantine leave? So that leave is available for up to 3 orders of quarantine. Keep in mind that the second and third do need to be based on a positive COVID-19 test. The next question is, if an employee is on paid family leave using it intermittently, is the employer allowed to change their shift? So keep in mind that, again, I can't provide legal advice, and this is a very specific question. Just remember that an employer cannot discriminate against an employee for taking paid family leave. So if an employer is doing something like changing a shift or something specifically because someone is on paid family leave, it is possible that the employee would then file a claim for discrimination. And also keep in mind that an employee is entitled to return to the same or a comparable position after taking leave. So you do have to make sure that any shifts that they have are comparable to what they had before they took paid family leave, or again, if the employee felt that they were being discriminated or retaliated against because they took the leave, they would be able to file a discrimination claim. Next question is whether you have to use your paid time off or personal time before you can use FMLA. So for questions about FMLA and whether or not you have to use your accruals, you should ask your employer because it may vary from employer to employer. Next question is about the COVID-19 quarantine leave. Do those benefits still apply to an employee who is working 100% remotely from home? So something that I should have mentioned is the COVID-19 quarantine leave benefits are only available if you aren't able to otherwise work. So if you are still able to work from home, then those benefits wouldn't be available. Next question is, we have multiple employees that work remotely in other states. Do they still need to pay for paid family leave out of their paychecks? So to be eligible for New York's paid family leave, an employee does need to be in employment, and part of that definition does require that the employee's work be localized in New York. So if you have an employee who is not working in New York at all, if they're exclusively working remotely from another state that is not New York, then they are not going to be eligible for paid family leave, and so they should not be paying for paid family leave. Next question is, what is the recourse if an employer has an employee who is abusing leave for other purposes? So if an employer feels that an employee is fraudulently requesting paid family leave, what they can do is reach out to their paid family leave insurance carrier, because it is the carrier who approves or denies the leave. So if you think that the employee is fraudulently using leave, let the paid family leave insurance carrier know. The next question is, I live in Connecticut, but my employer is in New York, and I sometimes work remotely from Connecticut and sometimes I work in New York. Am I eligible? So I won't be able to say whether or not you are definitely eligible or not eligible. Like I said before, you do have to be localized. The majority of your work does have to be localized in New York. So it's going to depend on the specific facts of your circumstance and how much time you are spending working in New York versus working from home. If you're not sure whether you're eligible, you can reach out to your employer's paid family leave insurance carrier and give them the facts of your situation and see if you're eligible. So the next question is about the COVID-19 quarantine leave, and I had mentioned how many times an employee can use it. So the COVID-19 quarantine leave is available for up to 3 orders of quarantine. That's not per year, that's total. So 3 total orders of quarantine or isolation. And the second and third do have to be based on the employee having a positive COVID-19 test. Okay, so we have a couple more questions that came in about the COVID-19 leave. So if you are able to, if you have the capability to work remotely from home, but you are too sick to work because you are sick with COVID-19, yes, then the COVID-19 quarantine leave benefits would be available to you. But if you don't have any symptoms and you're able to work from home, just because you have tested positive doesn't necessarily mean you'll have the benefits available. There is no requirement that the positive COVID-19 test be from a certified lab. You just need a positive COVID-19 test. And then I also just want to reiterate that it is up to 3 orders of COVID, up to 3 orders of quarantine or isolation. That's not per year, just 3 orders total for the benefits. So the next question was, does the order have to be issued by a government entity? So yes, all of the orders of quarantine or isolation do need to be issued by local Department of Health or other government entity. If you go onto the paid family leave website, on the COVID-specific website, we have an entire section about obtaining an order of quarantine or isolation, and there are links to the New York Department of Health's website where you can get the attestations for quarantine and an attestation for isolation.
All right, thank you. That seems to be all the questions we have. So thank you, Quinn, and thank you again to everyone for joining us today. Just as a reminder, one more time, we will be providing a copy of this presentation as well as a recorded version on our YouTube page. Make sure you're signed up for email notifications so you're notified when those are available. Again, just go right to our paid family leave website, scroll down to the bottom of the home page, select the Get Paid Family Leave Updates. By subscribing, you will also receive other paid family leave updates, including invites to future webinars. As Quinn mentioned, we also distribute information via social media, so please be sure to follow the Workers' Compensation Board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.